Welcome to another Ask Me Anything. I'm your presenter, Vanessa Callahan, the founder and lead coach at Raising Our Resilience. And we have some great questions I can't wait to dive into. So glad you're here. Buckle up, here we go. We're going to go right into it. And if you are here and you did not submit a question, please feel free to throw it into the chat or the Q&A, so I know that you're here, and then I can build in some time for your questions. So our first one comes from Jacqui. So Jacqui B, we've got a great question here about your 4-year-old having separation anxiety when you leave her at preschool. This is a really common thing that folks run into all the time. I want you to know that, first of all, to be reassured that oftentimes kids are sensitive to transitions, especially when it comes to separating with caregivers. So if you're experiencing that out there, just know you're like Jacqui, you're not alone. And you can definitely help ease your anxiety and make preschool a more pleasant experience for both of you. The first thing I would suggest is that you have some kind of a ritual that is always the same, pardon me, always the same length, kind of like mini routine, I like to call it, that she can expect. So during my 5 years as a preschool teacher, I witnessed this over and over and over again. Oftentimes what would happen at first is that we would be trying a lot of different things to see what works for the child and for the parent to separate, and how the teacher can be supportive. And it's okay to do that for a little bit, but once you start to get into a zone of what's comfortable, pick something and stick with it. So what that can look like is, for example, one hug and then one kiss, and then walking you to the gate, and then the teacher's there by holding their hand. They wave goodbye is what you might be working up to, but for now they might just be crying watching you leave. But then the teacher makes sure that they kind of count to 10 and then move on to moving them to another area, which is not that separation area, to hopefully settle them into an activity. That's what you want to build towards, some kind of mini routine that helps to really get things sort of grounded into a pattern. That can be very reassuring, because oftentimes anxiety is worried thinking about the unknown. So it's a cognitive activity that can be disrupted. That's the good news. Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart documents this very well, the research behind it, that worry is actually a cognitive activity. And so there's anxiety about separation, and a piece of it is going to be that worry of what is happening next, the unknown. So we're going to make the routine of separation as known as possible and as consistent as possible. I want to say hello real quick to Sarah and Kirsten, my big-hearted, smart clients who are here tuning in on a Monday. So glad you're here. If you have a question, pop it in the chat, okay? All right, so that was Jacqui's question. And one other thing I want to say about anxiety in general with little ones is that routines matter, and being very intentional about transitions matters. And also it's important to build in tools for coping and some calm down strategies. And if this is something that you haven't yet explored very much, there's a treasure trove of tools. It's one of my favorite things to teach. I've done a whole 6-part series just on finding those calm down tools to bring more calm into the chaos and give kids that self-regulation skill that we really want them to have. So if that's something you want support with, I do have a way for you to get a free guide. Just DM me for it, let me know. And you can also go to my website, and there's a link that says get your free guide. So it's www.vanessacallahan, just spell out my name.com, and you'll see it there. You can just click get my free guide, and you'll have your 6 coping tools, my top 6 coping tools that kids and parents love. So go ahead and grab that for yourself. And so I would say with anxiety, working in ways of coping, and it's going to be different for each family member, and even different case, like situation by situation, mood by mood. But if you rotate through these 6, you will stumble upon the ones that are going to be their go-tos, the ones that are going to work the best. And so working through that process of trying all 6 of them, usually across 6 weeks, it sounds like quite an investment of time and energy, but it can make such a difference. So if that's something you haven't yet walked through the process, the 6-week process, I highly recommend it, for not only for your kids, but also for yourself, because busy life with children also brings up a lot of emotions for each and every one of us for various reasons. So let's manage our stress and cope together as a family. Kids learning a lot from what you model. So how do we handle anger and sadness, fear, anxiety, right? Worry, these things that we're talking about with Jacqui. Great question, Jacqui. Thank you for that one. Okay, moving on to the next one. And if you're here and you have a question, drop it into the chat, drop it into the comments before we finish so that you can have your question answered too. All right, so the second question here is from Danielle. So Danielle wants to know, when it comes to her 6-year-old and 4-year-old, she wants to know how can she, let's see, let me get the question right. Yeah. Stay patient and calm through emotional outbursts first with her 6 and 4-year-old. So we're just talking about this. Can you give me some strategies for learning how to regulate my own emotions? Oh, geez. I actually already answered your question, Danielle. I realized I did a 2-part. And so let me give you a little preview then of the 6 strategies, just so you can have a sense of what you might be trying out, Danielle. And I'm trying to tag you here, but we'll see if that works. Okay. So Danielle, when you're talking about this, I think of how, every day we kind of already have our stress management strategies for life before kids, and we have varying levels of success with that, right? So let's just imagine for a moment, 6, 7 years ago, before life before children, we had our ways of maybe regulating stress. And some of those things are, outside of the household, like, and they're activities that have these sort of elements built into them. And then what can happen, like, let's say, raising your heart rate and getting some exercise, socializing with friends and having a chance to sort of let off some steam, maybe vent about your day, and like catch up with people that you really like, really bring out the best in you. Maybe it's seeing places, like going into a cute urban area or out into nature, and that sense of being a part of something bigger than yourself, right? All these things that we might have relied on. And then we're all of a sudden home with baby or infant or the child we adopted, and we get disrupted in our pattern, in our routine, in our daily life. How many of you can relate? I mean, it happened to me even just as a step parent, but also even becoming a new teacher. I was just and doing all my trainings and tutoring and everything on the side, like all these things that I would use to really regulate myself or sort of put to the side. And I found myself being more and more sensitive to the kids' emotions. You kind of have your fresh energy, and then it just fades pretty quickly. So what I would say on this piece, and this is something I haven't talked as much about with my clients, but has been come on my mind lately. As I met with Coach Imani last week in Atlanta, we were talking about how do you keep that spark going with your partner, for example, once the kids are here. And just like, what do you do? How do you make that happen? And she's like, well, you can't just like go out every night anymore, right? And so her whole thing is, how can you get the same result with less time or less money or less whatever, fill in the blank, that you now have less of? So in this case, often it's less time and less energy, because you're putting so much energy into raising the kids and maybe working more to pay for their tuition or whatever you might be doing, right, to make this work as a family. So the secret sauce here is really looking back to, like, what were you naturally drawn to that helped you to manage your emotions, to manage your stress before kids? Or like, think of your best week this past year with the kids and what was going on. What elements were there that really helped you to stay grounded in yourself, feel like you had an outlet or a resource that really nourished you or helped you to sort of release some tension? Think about what that was. And at first, it might bring up some bad emotions. So I apologize in advance, because you're probably going to go, well, I used to be able to, or that one, only when I take time off can I, right? And there's some truth to that. Like, I'm not diminishing that thought. However, I want to trouble it and disrupt it a little bit from being one way or the other. I was just coaching a client yesterday, a pair of clients. I was on a call with them, and we were talking about, not yesterday, sorry, Friday. We were talking about how they could possibly integrate special time and connection time with their kids. during when they feel like they're just pushing through the routine every day and they're getting through it. And I said, we need to stop separating this connection time with getting stuff done time. We need to make the getting stuff done time, like the everyday tasks of life, opportunities to connect and integrate the two together. So the same thing can happen here. So now reaching back to that thing or many things that would help you manage your stress, when you reflect on that, what are some elements that are present? Is it getting outdoors? Is it connecting with somebody, with an adult, where you can have like open, honest conversations, a trusted peer? Was it, visiting somewhere new and getting to see something that you haven't seen before? Is it, getting like, your hands dirty, like kind of getting really kinesthetically into something? Was it like submersing into water? What was it? What was the element that was there? And I want you to take that and infuse it in the smallest version possible into the next 24 to 48 hours. I don't care if it's immerse yourself in water, see about stopping by your local pool for just 30 minutes and just dive in, swim 2 or 3 lengths of pool, and then leave, right? See if you can fit that in. I mean, this is kind of a more very, I don't know, sort of like obvious sort of like, oh, instead of an hour and a half session, you do a 30-minute session sort of example, but I want you to use that as sort of a template. Maybe that's not it. Maybe it's time in nature. Well, what about going to your, down the street with when the kids are playing on the yard and bring that blanket, lay on it and look up at a tree with your arms sprawled out for 5-10 minutes. Give yourself that. Maybe team up with a friend who will watch your kids for just 15 minutes for you. Someone you can have a co-play date at the park, maybe even build in some social time there. How can you bring these elements back into your life, friends? Because whether we like it or not, it's really easy to get into this like churning routine where we grind away at work and like tasks and getting everybody where they need to be and all the things cleaned up, and we don't build in time for joy. And if you want to have a deeper dive into this, listen to my interview with Coach Imani from last week. Check that out. Okay, so that's one. The other, of course, is to continue bringing in these coping tools. And so the master, I'll give it to you right now, but I want you to still read the guide and go through the process, okay? The 6-week process of trying each of these one at a time. But the master tool and skill, the most important one that gives access to all the other tools, is being able to pause. I can't tell you how many times I've had my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year clients who they know a lot of things. They know how to preview, they know how to build good routines, they know how to motivate without using rewards and punishments. They have a lot of great coping tools in place, that they know about or like that they've been practicing. They know how to repair really well. They know, they've got all these tools because they've been in the immersion for 1, 2, 3, or 4 years. So they've got the basic tools, but what they're learning to really become is somebody who has more self-mastery. And what I mean by self-mastery is being able to take that moment and slow down and build in that pause. One of my clients, Betsy Freeman, recently said, Vanessa, when I remember to slow down and pause, I can access all my Vanessa ideas. She's like, I can channel Vanessa. And I don't necessarily encourage everyone to channel me. Like, it just happens to work for her to think of it that way. But she's like, I find my Vanessa voice and like, what would Vanessa do voice? And then I do things like I slow down and I offer choices. I get into his world. I find a way to make sure I'm not making it about me. And it's really just, what is my goal for my kid right now? What does he need to learn right now? And she's finding this switch within her, like the calm parent switch. I like to call it this calm parent switch, where she switches it, she calms down, she's able to just sort of take it in and prioritize and access tools. Now, can you do this overnight? No. However, if you have this goal in mind and you continue to work on it, and for some of us, it makes sense to stay in the container of mentorship with the same, messages and community. So it really sinks in deeper and deeper and deeper and becomes just the new mode of being. But when we take the time to continue engaging with these ideas, however you go about it, it will transform your reactions. You just got to hang in there for it. Now, I've tried to create an accelerated process that it happens, a lot of breakthroughs happen in the first 6 months. And then in the second 6 months, you have a chance to refine your approach and new problems come up. You get to practice what that's like. And then it can take that extra 2 or 3 years of continuing to just tell your nervous system, this is okay. It's okay for me to put this aside and not react and respond. But I hope that I can accelerate to more like 1.5 years, because what I see is in the second year, by 6 months, then people are having this breakthrough. And do they have to continue practicing it and reminding themselves and reprioritizing? Yes, of course. That's how it works. That's how humans are. Think of how long you've been doing it the old way. 10, 20, 30 years, right? Even more for those of us who are in our 40s, like myself. And if you want change, like, it's not very fair to expect yourself to change in 6 months and radically rewire yourself in 12 months. But maybe 18 months is right. That's where you're like, yeah, I've really put it in. I mean, even like my client Tiffany came to me, she said, Vanessa, I know to master a thing, I need to stick with something for 3 years. And so she did. She's actually in her 4th year of mentorship. And she said, I'm now able to slow down. It's like, it's her main thing her whole life, she was accelerated. What's next? On it. Got to get on it. Got to do it. Got to make it happen. Make sure it's all like covered. And then she'd crash and check out completely. You know this. I've been there. I don't know if you know this mode, but it's like on, and then, so off. Don't bring anything to me. And then the kid cries and then it's game over, right? So she's learned to kind of slow down and pace herself and building connection along the way. So it's not sort of all like, task mode to then connect mode and then crash mode, right? It's like these pieces get to integrate over time. So this is what's available to y'all. Stay on the path, stay with it, and don't beat yourself up if you slip back into old habits or if your nervous system is overloaded. How human of you. Take the moments you need, ask for the help you need. I'm going to get to Sarah's question next because it's so connected to this. Give yourself that nourishment, give yourself what you need, reset, come to something like this, hear what's possible, know that it's not game over, right? It's reset, start over, and then pick one next thing you're going to try to bring into those moments. And I think the number one thing is that slow down and pause. Slow down, pause, choose. Yeah. And sometimes in the slow down, what you get to do is observe your reaction. Oh, I'm having so I'm just going to go ahead and say, Sarah, yours, trying to work on reaction to negative behavior. Yes. Right. So in that, when you see that reaction unfolding from that higher self point of view, where you're observing yourself, right? It's not the body doing its thing. It's you noticing the body doing its thing. Like my heart is racing. I'm clenching my fists, those kinds of things. My thoughts are racing. I'm starting to see red. For me, my cheeks get hot and I start looping in my mind to say the same thing over and over again in my head. So I have my tells. When that reactivity comes up, pause and choose. And I use the word choose very intentionally because choosing is not reacting. Reacting is doing it like a reflex, like, you tap and your finger pops kind of thing, right? You tap your elbow and your arm pops. That's a reaction. It's almost like a reflex. Instead, notice your reaction, pause, slow down, choose something else. Now, sometimes we just need to choose to take a moment. And we talk a lot about this, about putting our lids back on, using those coping tools, right? But you can't access that without the pause. So practice the pause, practice the pause, practice the pause. It's so important. Sarah says, I realize he's very empathetic and picks up on my response more negatively than positively. Mm-hmm. Let's just talk about why that makes sense for everybody's benefit. Not just, Sarah, but this is worth saying. Kids want to stay safe. They want to also be alerted to danger by their caregivers. So if someone in their environment who they're relying on for cues is having a bad reaction to something or negative reaction, a stress response, their nervous system is going to pick up on that faster than an empathetic response, which can be reassuring, but it's just not the same. That's why that ratio of 4-to-1 positives to negatives is such a powerful thing that we borrow from John Gottman's research and his associates. 10-to-1 for romantic relationships or troubled relationships that are needing to repair deeply. So we're in the 4-to-10 range, right? With a little one who's having this behavior. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here you're saying phrases, keywords, or approaches. Example, TV is going to take a break now. And then he grabs a pillow and throws it across the room screaming, no. Okay. Got it. Yeah. He's rejecting the idea. How little kid of him. No. Right? Oh, so I like to just go, oh, you'd really like to watch some more TV, and then see if you can get him to say, yes. Okay, you've taken one step towards emotion coaching. So we can pull it around without it having to go from negative to positive. We can go to like negative to just stating what is. And that's a little tip I have for you, Sarah, there. Oh, you'd really, and you do this. And I think that's part of why I love when you come on and you're like, I don't know how. And I'm like, yes, you do. Or you didn't exactly say you don't know how, but you're having trouble, which is much better than I don't know how. So good job, Sarah. Yes, it can be really challenging. Yes, you do. Right. It can be really challenging to find the words. And that's where it's almost like when you observe yourself, you can observe, just start with an observation. Oh, and like kind of a stated goal. Oh, you'd really like to watch more TV, huh? So much that you would throw a pillow and yell no. Got it. And then if he goes, yeah, or if he goes, no, and you're like, oh, did I get it wrong? What else? See if you can get that communication, because I always say all behavior is communication. So if he can get it out, get that communication out, and you give it at least 30 seconds, let's say, to a minute, the max, okay? And just get that out. And then you help him move on. And sometimes it's redirection. Sometimes it's getting down on the ground with him and throwing, like, let's throw pillows together and let it all out. Oh, why is it like this? Why can't we have TV forever? I want TV infinity, like get in there with them, let them feel it. You can feel it too is always an option. Kind of join them, exaggerate it, let it out. Redirection, hey, we can't do TV, but we can definitely do bubbles in bath time. I'm going to go start the bath. And you walk away and go start the bath and make it a party over there and be like, ooh, these bubbles are so cool, and see if you can draw them over there. And Kirsten's done this with Luca, with her son. I know it. Oh, Luca, what's over here? It's kind of like, look at the bird. Let's come over here and see what's so cool over here. If you stand over him and suggest it, though, this is what I see parents do all the time. I've been doing some home observations, and this is like a very common thing, is that we try to get a child to verbally agree to something when sometimes we just need to act. Move your body towards the goal, towards the redirection. Start reading a story. Let's say I'm going to give you a moment while I go get the bubbles going. If you'd like to pour in the soap, I'll be over there, and then you give it a minute, let the water run, and go, okay, soap time. Are you going to do it with me, or do you need another minute? And then you're not giving all this attention to the pillow throwing beyond maybe joining him for a moment. You move on. Okay. Sarah says, thank you. Yeah. Good. I hope these examples, specific suggestions, are helpful to kind of illustrate some possibilities. I always had to hear more and watch and observe more examples when I was learning how to handle little kid stuff, because first of all, they would do something and I just, to be honest, I wouldn't know what it meant. I don't know what they're after, but there are some themes, right? And we start to pull out these themes, like, I want something and you won't let me have it. Very, very common theme, right? That's what kids will let you know. They're like, you have something that you won't, especially anger. I know what I want. You have it and you won't give it to me. And so now I'm mad at you or the situation, right? Or the container. So they're like, I want to bite it, whatever. So there's these messages that come through emotions, which we studied a bit in the emotional mastery weekend. I gave you those because it helped me too, to go like, well, it's usually either angry, sad, overjoyed or scared. And there's some core messages, and we can help them find those messages. So we're just constantly working with this communication piece, and also when they're young, the younger they are, the sooner we just need to kind of act, like move, like don't just verbalize, move your body, take them somewhere else, bring an object in, go do something and invite them to join you. Ask them if they need help, and you can physically move something, even their body, if you need to. Walking away is also okay. And then coming back and letting them know you'll return, so they have a little space to maybe self-regulate, sort it out. Okay. Soothing yourself in front of them, also an action. Yeah. I'm going to take some breaths. I'm going to tense and release. I'm going to run to the fence and back. I think that'd feel good. I have definitely had to sort of like find my inner preschooler when I was teaching. It's like, it's too cool. I was too cool for school in high school to do, like, I wasn't like the goofy one, like I was funny, like I was quick, like I was clever, right? but I wasn't one to like kind of act out and clown out. So I had to kind of find that again. And kids really appreciate it because what they can see and what they see you do and how you're embodying these things can have a really big impression. We have to definitely try and talk it through with our kids a little too much, especially when they're young. So move that body, show them, do it yourself, etc. Okay. All right. Follow-up questions, let me know. Kirsten, if you got one, let me know. Okay. All right, back to the folks who are just joining our Facebook group. So Jane P says, 2 of my kids seem to worry a lot, and the third seems to be annoyed by the world all the time. So we're talking about some moody times with the kids. How many of you have a moody one right now? Yeah. How can I gain a better understanding as to why my kids are like this, and how can I help them cope? So we're talking, now we're going to the older ages, 7, 11, and 14. So let me just talk about these developmentally, and maybe that'll help. So 7-year-olds are definitely finding their voice. They are starting to want to influence how things go, but they have a limited life experience. So oftentimes they want to start throwing their weight around in a way that not like a toddler, like throwing a pillow, but maybe more like, well, arguing with you, kind of getting into lengthy negotiations, saying some things like, well, everybody else does this, or that's what my teacher said, or, kind of bringing in elements that they're a little more sophisticated. So that's something to just have in mind, that they're trying to find their like equal voice of influence in the family system and in the classroom system, which is why I often have my 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds take on little leadership roles when I had 6 to 9-year-olds in my classroom, where 6-year-olds were often the ones who were being led more, unless they came in hot and strong. Some of them do. But usually I wait till about 7.5 and give them, a little more responsibility, see if they can handle it and build on that. And they usually would rise to the occasion and feel seen and heard and their needs met around having a voice. I'd also call on them first sometimes when it came to like weighing in on a decision. I would, reinforce their good ideas. So this is something that, if it's alive and well with your 7 to 8-year-olds, even 9-year-olds, pay attention to giving them a voice at the table and making sure you really, you don't fall into this trap. And this is one I want everyone to hear, by the way, for all ages. Please try and break this habit if you're doing it. Asking kids questions where you don't really want to know the answer. You just want them to do something. Doesn't it sound like a good idea to eat dinner right now? Would you like to take a bath? If those aren't choices, don't make them choices, please. Let them know that it's happening and then build in a choice. Hey, would you like to have bath or dinner first? Great. If it's a real choice, let them, but don't say, wouldn't you rather have a bath first? If bath needs to be first, just say bath is happening before dinner. And then maybe you can ask a different choice. Like, would you like to pour in the bubbles or do you want mommy to do it this time? Right? Should we use the measuring cup or the measuring spoon? Which toys do you want to bring into the bath today? Right? Should we set a 5-minute timer or a 7-minute timer? Those are real choices. So just be careful about bringing, don't have your child decide everything. And please don't give them false choices. It will burn them out on the questions. They'll start getting annoyed with you. Who wouldn't? Hey, do you think we should focus on project A or project B this quarter? Says your project manager. And you say A, and you're like, well, I was thinking B. So let's focus on B. How does that land with you? I had a parent that did this all the time. So I just learned to be like, well, what are your thoughts? Because the question's not a question. It's not a question. It's a conversation starter. It's not they don't actually want to know what I think. Or if they do, then I start to get clarity on that when they start to muddle through their thinking and they actually say something a little more specific. Like, well, for this part of the project, I'm not sure if it's going to take 2 weeks or 4 weeks. What do you think? That's probably a real question. Yeah. And kids can sniff out the difference. So it's not just about switching to questions, it's about switching to authentic moments that they can weigh in and influence things. So little refinement, but an important point, especially as the kids get older, man, they get really sensitive to this at like 9 and 10. Oh, they don't like it when you ask them a question that's not a question. And then as teenagers, they're just like, don't even talk to me. So it's good to practice now with the young ones, or if you already have teens like Jane does. So let's talk about adolescents, 11, 14. So 11 is often emerging adolescents. We've got a lot of big emotions running the show. It's really normal for them to have irrational and erratic mood swings. But if they are not able to recover from them and they're happening more often than once or twice a day, and the reaction seems to be a lot bigger than the actual situation would sort of warrant, like a lot bigger, consistently, make sure you're checking with your pediatrician first, and then possibly working with a counselor, just to make sure that the child's getting everything they need around their like emotional regulation. And this is for adolescents, okay? Because big emotions are normal, and actually you want to look for, and this is for all ages, but especially in adolescents, you want to see them express sadness when something sad happens, and anger and frustration when there's an injustice or somebody's being mean to them, or hurt, you want to see a healthy display of all range of emotion when it fits the situation. It's just when it doesn't fit and it's pretty intense and long lasting and chronic, that's when you want to worry. Okay. So one thing I want to say to you, Jane, is that when you say worry a lot, I want you to sort of think it through from what I just said, right? Does it seem like a reasonable response to what's going on? Do the episodes sort of resolve themselves within a day? Do they have some kind of coping mechanism that they're using that seems to be on the healthier side? And there's such a wide range of what that can look like, but like not avoiding or repressing the problem, or like severely taking it out on others or towards themselves, right? I'd be looking for those things. And if there are any gaps there, I'd want you to fill them. So, Jane, the other thing I would want to know is how well is it going for you to do the check-ins with them? Like, are you succeeding in getting them to share what they're feeling and what's causing those feelings? Are you able to witness how they're coping? Are they revealing that to you? And if that's not happening, then we might want to look at how to build more rapport. And a little bit more of an open line of, maybe a very much more open line of communication. I have a client that has teenagers, and actually now two kids in their 20s, but when we started, he was a teen. And we've done a lot of work with her and her daughter's relationship, because her daughter was definitely experiencing a lot of intense emotions, lashing out and then retreating, and then never really like talking it through with her mom. Now she still has some lash out moments, but she's able to also like own it, apologize, talk it through, get support from her mom. Is also learning some coping tools in a coping tools program, and it's going really well overall. Like she went from struggling and failing in school to now getting great grades within a year of like sort of these changes coming into play that my client was so smart to like really commit to. So when you say worry a lot, I have a lot of questions, but those are some ideas just based on, the topic. Jane, if you feel like you'd follow up, let me know, DM me, or you can get on my calendar for a free 30-minute consultation, which that's how a lot of folks sort of discover their strengths and get a sense of whether or not they would like some mentorship around, what they're struggling with right now, or what's concerning them. So here are two resources. There's a strategy session and a parenting strengths quiz. I encourage you to go ahead and go for it. Take the quiz, book a time, and I'll help you and walk you through your quiz results. Okay. All right. Good. And that goes for anybody who has not met with me the last 6 months. You can have a 30-minute consult with me, and we can check out what's up with your current, current struggles, current successes, what you could build off of, etc. Okay. Next topic. Jane, let us know if you have follow-up questions. Next topic is from Danielle. So this is from Danielle, another different Danielle, Danielle G. So Danielle, when I look at this question, I first of all know that if you already have a diagnosis for your child with ADHD, your 13-year-old, you probably have an IEP in place and you're working with specialists. So that's really helpful. And though your daughter with your 7-year-old is really sassy and your 4-year-old is stubborn and a handful, and you're just saying help. When I see just help, I say usually it's time for you to take inventory on what's working, what's not working. Okay. So Danielle, just like I recommended to Jane and others who might want the support, take the quiz, see what's standing out to you in the 7 pillars of raising resilient kids, what's working, what's not working. It's a diagnostic tool. And in that diagnostic tool, we can kind of zone into things that you would need further support with and things that we can build off of as strengths. And I'm more than happy to walk you through that in a 30-minute session. So let's just talk about stubborn and sassy, though, since we have the topic was raised. So first of all, let's acknowledge the strengths of stubborn and sassy. A person can't be stubborn without knowing what they want. Having clarity internally of what you want or what you need is a powerful thing. And we definitely don't want to squash that. Let's talk about sassy. Sassy means that you feel brave to raise your voice and put your voice into situations, to sort of push back on power and find your own, kind of like grasping for your own power. And especially for, I think, girls, we often encourage this to blossom because we want them to be a strong girl, a strong, capable young woman, and be able to speak her mind, stand up for herself, continue to help us close the pay gap, things like that. So and maintain our rights or fight for rights. So it's interesting because I think what happens often is that girls are get a little more positive reinforcement by kind of empowering moms than not. And so in a lot of ways, Danielle, you're doing your job well here, right? You've got a sassy daughter who can speak her mind. How can we help her, though, have more success in being strategic and respectful to a point, right? In how she flexes her muscles, how she flexes her power. And I think one of the most important things we can teach a 7-year-old in general is to start noticing what's working, what's not working. And we can start with ourselves. Hey, sweetie, when you say it like that, it actually makes me want to not do it for you or not give it to you. Although I see how powerfully you want this, and that's clear to me, right? So you can not make it wrong that she's coming across powerfully, but you can let her know how it's landing with you and how effective it is. She needs that feedback from you. And it's different from saying, don't use that tone with me, or say it nicely, right? Because nice is good. And it's important for kids under 6, especially. We can do that. We can say, can you find a nicer way to say that? Can you try again and ask more nicely? We also, though, want to build in how it's impacting. Because what is her goal there? Her goal is to influence and have power. And if you let her know that her strategy, which is saying in this rude, sassy way, or, whatever, being condescending or cutting you down or using a name, or just, doing the things that get under your skin with the sassiness. And if you let her know it's like those strategies aren't really landing well and are not going to get her what she wants, you leave this opening for her to adjust and for her to learn how to modulate and regulate sort of how she's putting this sass out into the world. 7 is a good time to start. Don't expect it to become polished, though, until about 10. I'm just going to say, you might get surprised and have 8.5, 9. I've been with 6 to 9-year-olds for 10 years as a classroom teacher, and I'll tell you, it can sometimes take all the way to the end of 3rd grade or whatever that, age cap is at around 9 for them to polish that off. They're going to be playing with this for a while. Even Montessori said this is the beginning of the age of rudeness, 9 to 12. So yeah, nip it in the bud, but kind of stay in there for the long haul, for the long road ahead. Continue to give her feedback, help her with that. Now, stubborn 4-year-old needs to know when you mean business in a way that doesn't start a huge power struggle. So it's a lot of what we were talking about before, which is act, follow through, giving them an opportunity. This I didn't mention yet, when you're offering choices for them to course correct along the way. So it might be say something like, back to the pillow throwing. Oh, sweetie, right? First you try to get into his world. Ooh, are you trying to let me know that you really really want some more TV time? I mean, it looks like you would. Yeah, I see that. And then maybe you get to the point where he's kind of like, yeah, he gets his little out, and you're like, okay. And then the empathy, like you said, Sarah, works really. Oh, I really wish I could stop time and we could watch as much TV as we want, but unfortunately, time keeps going, and it's actually time for this, right? Let's say bath time. Actually, time for a bath time. Yeah. And then you could say, and if he's doubling down, because that's where stubborn feels stubborn, right? You've tried something, it's not changing things. then you change. Don't try to make him change, right? You change. Say, well, I'm going to go get the bath started over here, and give you a minute. I hope to see you over there. So you'll be there in time to do the bubbles, like I mentioned. Now, let's pretend he's continuing to double down and be stubborn. He's not coming. He's not coming to bath. He's staying there. He's pouting. He's continuing to thrash around or whatever. That's when you can get a little more serious with your choices. And this is where it's like mama means business. And it can be from, you can kind of scaffold it. You could say, okay, first, sweetie, do you need me to, am I going to be the one doing the bubbles then? You're going to miss the bubbles? And you could say, I don't care about bubbles. Okay. And then go do the bubbles and come back. Okay, bubbles are ready. Now it's time to choose a book or choose what toys we're going to use. Do you want, am I going to choose the toys, or do you want to have a chance to choose the toys? You choose the toys. Very stubborn. Great. I'm going to pick something really fun. See, I'm like rolling with it. I keep giving opportunities. And then I might even start the party over there and like turn on some music, play a song, something, and let it be boring for him to be back in the living room pouting, and try that. Or I might come to him and say, okay, sweetie, now it's go time. We're going to head to the bathroom. Do you want me to carry you? Do you want to take yourself, or do you want to hop like a frog? Something fun. Notice I'm keeping it rolling. The world does not stop when our stubborn kids say no. I'll say it again. The world does not stop. Now, could you drop in with them for a minute to 2 minutes, like I was suggesting, and maybe go, why isn't there infinity TV? Or, oh, I wish I could stop time. Sure. But the world doesn't stop. Things keep moving along. That's very important for stubborn little ones. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful to Danielle and all those of you who are listening with little ones. All right. We've got 2 more. So I'm going to throw them in together and answer both of them in the last bit of time here. So we're looking at first Julie's question. So let's see if we can get Julie tagged here. Yep, we can. Excellent. And then also Kari or Carrie's question. We'll see how it comes up. So these are for older kids, but there's always something for everyone in here. So let me just go ahead and put these in. I have a busy household of 4 kids who won't listen to me. How do I sharpen their listening skills? 8, 11, 15, and 17. Well, Julie, like I was kind of walking through the ages and stages with Jane, you're going to need to recognize where your 8-year-old's at, your 11 and your 15, 17-year-olds, where they all are at developmentally, and adjust your approach for each one. And I also think one thing I haven't mentioned today that would be helpful to all of you who have multiples is that sometimes dividing and conquering is the only way that it can get done. And I don't mean in a colonial way. Okay. What I mean is splitting up resources and dynamics so that you're not one person playing whack-a-mole with a bunch of folks. What can happen when you do that is that if you have teenagers, the teenagers will peel off and ignore everything. And then you're stuck with the young ones already in a mess. So instead you can plan ahead. And you can build into your routine, sometimes it's going to need to be just me and the little ones getting things done while I let the teenagers do their thing. But they know that once it's 8 o'clock, that's when we're going to check in about homework. That's when we're going to talk about, our goals for the week. That's when we're going to have our moment of sharing roses and thorns. You can shift the schedule so that you meet everybody's needs in different stages. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen with kids or parents with multiples is they keep trying to put them all together and stick them in the same place, doing the same thing at the same time. They don't like it. You'll be lucky if you get that at mealtime for 20 minutes, 3 times a week. I'm just going to be honest with modern life and how scheduled out we are. It's very tough. Now, if you want to make that a priority, that you sit together and eat every single day, you're going to really need to work with your teenagers and really have them understand why that commitment's there. Even share research about what happens when families eat dinner together. Even like ask them for their input on like what would make that time more valuable to them. And also be okay with a certain threshold. Like they can do that, but only for 20 minutes, maybe 25, 30 if you're lucky, right? You don't expect your teenagers to give you an hour of family time every night. You won't get it. So it's a lot of it is around scaling your expectations based on kind of the needs, because 15 and 17-year-olds need to be with their friends. It's their time to be outwardly facing into the world, mostly learning and growing in their adolescent peer group and in their activities outside of the household. So also getting really clear about expectations about what they do need to contribute to the household. And there's a whole activity I like to bring my clients through when their kids start to hit 10 to 12 around how to lay out chores into personal responsibilities, household responsibilities, and extra responsibilities, and even tying in for those families who want to some allowance and structuring that in a way that really works. Rather than starting a system you have to recreate and recreate over and over again. So if that's of interest to you, Julie, let me know. Last is just personal message me about that, and we can get you or book a session. I'd be happy to share that tool with you and talk through what you can do globally to get things into a better place. Because when I hear "don't listen to me," I think of routines. I think of multiple ages and what you need to do about that, which I touched on. But I also think about what kind of connection time are you having? Like how are you building rapport with each of the kids? And also what it would look like to motivate them to listen more, which is all the intrinsic motivation stuff that I love to teach. So let me know how I can support you, Julie. Okay. Maybe pop on my calendar or take the quiz so I can support you that way. It's a great place to start. Or drop me a comment here. Let me know. Last question. My biggest challenge is trying to co-parent with someone who has a vastly different parenting style. Can you offer any tools for making it work when both parents are just not on the same page? And you have teenagers who are heading out of the house. You have a 16 and 18-year-old. So I want to say it's never too late. Okay. It's really important that every parent hears this. Some people, even when they have toddlers, feel like they're behind the curve. First of all, how unfair is it that we have a societal expectation that parents are supposed to figure out everything on the job? We don't do that for any other role in society that's this important. We would never do that to other where lives depend on you kind of roles, like a doctor or like an emergency room attendant, which sometimes we play that role, like, right, we're like the EMT that's on call. We're so many things to our kids. So I just want to speak to that for a second. I'm a big advocate for parents getting mentorship at whatever age and stage you decide you need it. So good on you to be here asking this question with your kids at 16 and 18, Carrie. I love it. So vastly different parenting styles usually run a whole range. And what I would say is that typically when you say vastly different, there's one that's firmer and one that's more kind of more fun and supportive. And you end up kind of getting typecast into these good cop, bad cop roles, or the fun one and the strict one, things like that. So that's the classic, but every co-parenting team has their version of it. I've also had like the interrogator and the storyteller, and that's a really different dynamic too, right? So getting more specific would be helpful, Carrie, in terms of getting you some support. So, check out the possibility of the quiz in the session too. But what I would say is that for everybody, if you do the inventory on what are we doing, what are we both doing to support our kids, and what are we both doing to create more demand and structure for our kids? And can we align our efforts in support and demand towards common goals? So like, what if our goal is to have family dinner 3 times a night where we sit through a whole 30 minutes together and try to, as much as possible, enjoy our time together? Well, the supportive parent might be like, hey kids, like, come on, let's do this. Like, what do you need? Like, what do you want? Right? It's like cheering, like cheerful, like this, like kind of like attract more bees with honey kind of thing. And the stern parent might be like, we need to pick a schedule. It needs to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, no exceptions. This is, it's going to be always at 7:00, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're going to have a meal plan ahead of time, and we're going to rotate through these 3 meals. And, we can revisit that once a week and see if we want to change it for the next week. Well, guess what? Neither approach is wrong. You need both. You need the enthusiasm, the why are we doing this in the first place, kind of like feeling tone of the goal and the support of, letting them influence and asking questions and getting curious, right? The supportive side. And you need the structure or the demand of what is our routine? Like, how are our processes going to support this goal? We talk a lot about that in leadership and legacy, by the way, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year, because it's great to have intentions and desires, but to actually execute it is a whole nother ballgame. And we talk a lot about hacks on how to not only embody the kind of person and leader and parent you want to be, which is that pause tool, and so much that's possible from there, but also like, how do we actually craft the daily lives of our, family system so they, that we infuse it with all these good pieces that we've learned. So hopefully just having a little overview of that is supportive of you and everyone who's here listening. We're going to wrap up with just some encouragement. I want you to know that as I've been working with parents, over 20 years, but very, very focused on parenting work these past 5 years, I've been able to touch in with some of my alums because I'm putting together this mini retreat in Point Reyes Station for some of my clients and alums who are able to make it. And as I've been reflecting, I've been like seeing these names from 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and I'm checking in with families. How is it going? It's amazing how many times people have said to me, I'm still using blank tool. My kid still uses this strategy to calm down. What I want you to know, the hopefulness here, is that every little move you make to build up your family's toolbox, every step you take to become the kind of parent and parent leader that, leader of your family that you want to be, it accumulates and it has ripple effects forward. So it's not just like every day you start over. You get to build something. And what I think you are building is not only a way forward of leadership and empowerment, so your kid can see that for themselves and they can take that forward, but it's a legacy that you're leaving as they actually have taken this into their psyche and into their subconscious and into their even unconscious behaviors and thoughts and feelings and desires that are going to come from these impressions you've given them. And the main impression I want you to give them is, I work on my parenting because you matter that much to me. I'm trying new things. I'm asking new questions. I'm modeling things that I want to see. I'm stating goals. I'm creating an atmosphere of learning for the family. I'm also a learner. When you do that, and then you also bring in right tools and right strategies with that sort of like growth mindset, building, they will look back and see how much you've tried and how much they were able to benefit from those efforts. And I want you to really feel into how powerful that is and find your way to commit to that and recommit to it over and over again, no matter how messy it is, whether you're having a good day or bad day. But that dig deep within yourself, knowing that that is your bigger priority, that's your bigger goal, that's your bigger reason, and that it works. It's really effective, and you can always rest into that. I'm a parent who's working on my parenting, and that counts for so much. Do you know how many people out there who just kind of go like, well, that doesn't work, and move on, and then just is stuck in some crappy way of relating? So many. And they find me sometimes they don't find mentorship, but like even some that find me, they're just like, I don't have time for this. And I always get so sad because I know that if they were to claim it for themselves, how much relief is on the other side of it, how much less guilt, how much less worry, right? How much more confidence, how much more ease, how much more connection that they get to, and like kind of satisfaction with their life is on the other side of it. So stay in the fight, stay in the work, and you got this. I believe in you. Lots of love to each and every one of you. Until next time, bye, Kirsten. I saw that Sarah had to hop off, and great topics today, everybody. Thank you for contributing those, and we'll be back next Monday or 2 Mondays from now. We're taking a little break for another Monday Mindset at noon. Lots of love to each and every one of you. Bye for now.